chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerned. You hear some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you. From national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now, here's Sabrina.
Near and far. Hello. I'm there. There I am. Back in studio in living color. How is your Thursday going? Hoping everybody has had a very productive day. And here we are again. For another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands. Yes, conversations for the world. And the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I am Sabrina, and it's so good to be back with you this evening. So much to share in another, hopefully informative, thought-provoking discussion with you as well. Thank you for all the love that's being shared. Thank you for all the feedback. And yes, thank you for all of our new friends and family, followers, and subscribers. Yes, so that you don't miss an episode, continue to share the link and tell a friend to go on and click like and share so you don't miss an episode. But the key is you are the pulse of this platform, and we love your participation. And that is why, for you to be a part of it, we'd love to hear from you. Comments, yes, and WhatsApp as well is welcome. And I do my best to make sure that I read all of your comments, address your hey mama, definitely make you feel that you are all the co-hosts with me. Every one of you are co-hosts when it comes here on this platform. And that's what I love about the space, because you guys are definitely showing up, you're participating. And I love the fact that we're being very respectful and everyone knows how much they matter here. So thank you for all the love. Thank you for all the feedback as well, because today, just like every other day, every other episode, we're going to be engaging, in another real conversation. Not about politics, not even about personalities, but about the system that we all live under. And you'll understand where this whole topic came up from, because it was an article that was posted yesterday by CMR, and hence the title. Because when we see our government agencies don't communicate, which is showing us something. And Donnie, I need you to keep on locked in today, because something didn't ring well with me yesterday when I read that article, and you'll understand where I'm coming from with this. And anyone who's working in immigration and in law enforcement, you'll understand where I'm coming from with this today. And of course, your feedback, your participation is always welcome. But when we do see government agencies don't communicate, people fall through the cracks. And the community feels that impact. So tonight, it is my desire that we break it down, hopefully in plain language, again, from what I'm seeing, being that this article is so recent and there is a real case that we can look at to see where, I wonder if there's something bigger afoot. Where are we missing it? I want to break it down in plain language and kind of even have a look in a high synopsis form with what the law says and what it doesn't say is most important, and why these gaps matter every single one of us. And our reputation is at stake here, our reputation as in the Cayman Islands. And we're in the middle of doing immigration reform. Maybe CBC and the legislation that governs that as well need to probably take a look at how things are being ran. So I encourage you to stay with me this evening. We're live until 7 p.m. And I feel that this is a conversation that we all need to have, given the latest press release that we saw of the gentleman living in his car. Yeah. So that should set the tone. But again, you're all welcome. Comment on whatever platform you're streaming us live on. You can send me a WhatsApp. That's at 345-936-8255 to be a part of the, I'm getting there. To be a part of this conversation this evening. But please do remember that the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and our participants, is intended solely for general, informational, and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Now, Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night to everyone from all of our friends and family around the world. Hey to my UK family, how you doing? It's so good to have you all tuning in. And I know we have some latecomers, but that's all right. Once you show up, that's all that really matters. Jimbo, we sending you love as well. Connie Bonnie, yes, I did speak to him today. Even if it's in text, I just thought I would just let you know. I communicated with Jimbo. For all of you, that's an inside joke between Connie and I. But yeah, he's fine. So sending lots of love to Jimbo, and he will definitely at some point catch up with us. But we got some great news, history in the making here for the Cayman Islands. That is the top of our news headline segment. But you know how we do it here. For all of my boaters and for those who want to know what the weather is like, let's just get the weather out of the way. Compliments of our friends over there at the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. Yes, because the synopsis, this is your evening and tomorrow's weather forecast. And the synopsis is calling for light winds and smooth seas are expected during the next 24 hours due to a weak pressure gradient across the Northwest Caribbean. Now, thereafter, a gradual increase in winds and seas are expected. Now, radar imagery shows no showers around the Cayman area. The forecast for tonight is calling for mostly fair skies with a 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall near the mid-70s and winds will be light to variable. Seas will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet. Now, the forecast for tomorrow is calling for partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of afternoon showers. Temperatures will rise near the mid-80s with a heat index of 92. Winds will be northeast 5 to 10 knots and seas will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet. There will be tonight a low tide at 9:49, a high tide tomorrow morning at 5:25 a.m., and another low tide at 11:35. The sun will set this evening at 6:40 and sun will rise tomorrow at 6:12 a.m. Now, the outlook is calling for fresh northeasterly winds and moderate to rough seas from Sunday afternoon across the Northwest Caribbean as the pressure gradient tightens due to a high pressure system building over the eastern United States. And a small craft advisory is expected to be in place from Sunday afternoon. There you have it. If you're making your plans, any outdoor activities, now you know. Thank our friends over there at the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. Let's just get straight into our news segment right here on the Sabrina Speaks for today. Of course, no surprise and huge congratulations. Yes, the Cayman Islands government has a new appointed deputy governor. Cayman Islands appoints our first female deputy governor in the historic appointment of Mistress Gloria McFeel Nixon as the next deputy governor of the Cayman Islands, marking the first time a woman will serve in the senior leadership role. Now, Ms. McFeel Nixon will assume the position full-time later this summer, following the retirement of the current deputy governor, Honorable Vance Manderson, MBE, Cert Honor. And her appointment represents a significant milestone for the Cayman Islands and reflects her decades of dedicated public service and leadership within the civil service. Now, people from all over the islands have expressed their congratulations, noting that Ms. McFeel Nixon's experience, professionalism, and a commitment to public administration will serve the community well as she steps into this critical role. And, you know, the Cayman Islands community wishes her all success as she represents and takes up the responsibility of deputy governor and continue to advance the work of the civil service. From all of us here on the Sabrina Speaks family, congratulations. And we got to support you. We got to support you. Congratulations. Much, much love. And in other local news, making the news today, yeah, keep showing your love down in the comments as well. Show Gloria how much we love her. Huge, huge step here in the Cayman Islands. Other local news making it this evening, we got that the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service is relocating the Georgetown Police Station to 19 Eastern Avenue, the former Flow building. That's going to be effective Monday, May the 13th. Now, all walk-in services, including general reports and electronic monitoring check-ins, will move to this new site, along with the community policing, scenes of crime, major incidents, and victims care unit. Now, the RCIPS says that this upgraded facility offers improved access, parking, and long-term stability. The current Elgin Avenue station will remain open until 7 a.m. Monday, after which all public services must be accessed at the new Eastern Avenue location. Now, the Cayman Islands Coast Guard is warning everyone, and they're sounding the alarm after multiple videos surfaced showing boat operators abandoning the helm while vessels are still in motion. Officials called that behavior reckless and illegal, warning it endangers passengers, other boaters, and swimmers, including that of divers. Now, under the Merchant Shipping Act, operating any vessels, including jet skis, negligently or dangerously is a criminal offense. The Coast Guard is urging all operators to stop this practice immediately and says enforcement actions will be taken to protect public safety. In other local news, the Department of Agriculture is issuing an urgent alert as spiral whitefly numbers continue to rise across the Cayman Islands, threatening crops and garden plants. Now, farmers, gardeners, and the public are being urged to attend an invitation meeting on April 14th at 6:30 p.m. at the Cayman Islands Agriculture Society Stacy Waltler Pavilion, with a Zoom option also being offered. Officials will be online to tell you how to identify infestation, the impact that it has on plant health, and effective strategies to control and reduce the pests. The department says community cooperation is essential to keeping populations manageable. And another local news making the headlines today, ECAP application support session. Yes, families needing help applying for the Early Childhood Assistance Program can get in-person support this Saturday at the Georgetown Library. Now, the drop-in session runs from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., offering guidance for Caymanian children who will turn 3 before September 1st and are applying for the 2026-2027 academic year. Official says that the session will help parents complete applications correctly and answer any questions, making the process easier and stress-free for families. There you have it. Let's turn our attention now to the news that are making headlines in our region for this evening. In regional news, we see where Prime Minister Honorable Dickon Mitchell today welcomed Acting President H.E. Delcy Rodriguez of Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to Grenada. Now, the official visit marked an important moment of engagement and dialogue between the two nations. Now, discussions focused on strengthening diplomatic ties, exploring areas of mutual interest, and advancing partnerships that supports development and cooperation across the Caribbean region. Both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to collaboration and friendship between Grenada and Venezuela. And another Caribbean news making headlines today, we see where St. Lucia has officially become a regional hub for public health protection. CARFA has opened a new antimicrobial resistance regional reference laboratory on the island, a state-of-the-art facility that will serve the entire Caribbean. Now, the lab allows member states to securely send samples to St. Lucia for advanced testing with faster results to support patient care. Experts say that the facility plays a critical role in identifying harmful bacteria and determining which medicines remain effective. A major step forward in the region's fight against antimicrobial resistance, a growing global health threat. And over in international news today, the United Kingdom has issued a stark warning to Vladimir Putin after Russian spy submarines were detected operating in the North Atlantic. Now, Defense Secretary John Headley says any attempt by Russia to interfere with or damage critical undersea infrastructure, including UK-owned cables and pipelines, will have serious consequences. British officials say that the increased submarine activity underscores growing concerns about Russia's intelligence gathering operations and the vulnerability of essential communication and energy networks across Europe. Also, in other news that I found very interesting today, a South African surgeon has made medical history by restoring patients' hearing using 3D printed middle ear bones. Yes, the pioneering procedure led by Professor Tishalvu replaces damaged auricles with custom printed implants, offering new hope for people with certain types of conductive hearing loss. Now, experts say that the breakthrough highlights how rapidly 3D printing technology is transforming modern medicine and opening the door for more personalized treatment. Yes. And despite a ceasefire, analysts say a full recovery to Middle East oil and gas output could take months. Now, energy strategists point to ongoing shipping risk, elevated insurance costs, and significant war-related damage to export terminals and pipeline networks. Now, even with hostilities paused, companies face logistical bottlenecks and complex repair timelines, delaying the return of stable supply. But markets remains cautious, with traders warning that any disruption to transport corridors or infrastructure could continue to pressure global energy prices. And we turn our focus as we wind down today's episode of the news segment. Let's hear what the markets had in store for us today. U.S. markets closed higher today, with the Dow and S&P and NASDAQ all positioning gains despite early geopolitical tensions. Now, oil prices rose but later stabilized, while gold and silver jumped as investors moved into safe haven assets. In the Caribbean, regional currency held steady, and tourism-linked stocks in Jamaica and Trinidad saw modest gains as travel demand continues to strengthen. Meanwhile, the Nifty in India traded lower after central bank held rates steady, and European markets ended mostly down on global uncertainty. There you have it. That concludes this evening news for the region, local, and international as well. And again, we want to say congratulations to Miss Gloria on her appointment, as we all are here to celebrate this with her. And we wish her all success. Yes, that's a proud moment for us, you know. We should all be so happy, and we see what is happening here in our country. So proud of her. So proud of her. Where's Tartarian? Tartarian was said something yesterday about class of 1990. Gloria's class of 1990. We all graduated together. So yeah, that is definitely something special to share. Let's take this opportunity to say happy birthday to everybody who's celebrating a birthday today or even a wedding anniversary. From all of us here on the Sabrina Speaks, we wish you many, many more happy birthday and wedding anniversaries as well. Or if you're just celebrating life, why not? Celebrate it in style and class. You do what you got to do, but we love you and keep showing all the love on the platform. And of course, our condolences go out to the families who are mourning the loss of a loved one. And I must give you an update of my dear friend, Happy Feet, Oscar DaCosta. And I'm going to share this with you this evening because the community is invited to join in honoring the life of her co-founder. This is from, he did this NPO, Oscar Estevan DaCosta, who passed away recently. Now, a funeral service celebrating his life will be held on April the 18th at 10:30 at the Cayman Islands Baptist Church. And in keeping with Oscar's wishes, guests are kindly asked to wear black tie or formal attire. Please note that there will be no viewing, and their extend heartfelt condolences to his wife, Melissa, his mom, Miss Emma Jean, known as lovingly Miss Jeannie, and his brother Jean as well, and all who knew and cherished him. Now, special thanks is also being extended to the team at Jasmine who cared, and their compassion meant so much to Oscar and, of course, to his family. And the family is asking that in lieu of flowers, that family request donation in Oscar's memory to the Gray Area and Jasmine Hospice. So may his soul rest in peace, and he will definitely be deeply missed. My old dancing buddy is gone, but Happy Feet, my love, dance free. So this is just a reminder, and you want more information, of course, you want to see this for yourself, go on to the Gray Area. It's posted there. So there you have it. But our thoughts and prayers are with the family and extended friends as well. Dear soul, he put up a real good fight. Yes. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome, one and all. I always hate that part, but we got to do it because it's a life, it's a friend. And once we are aware about it here, we do our best to share it with you. And thank you for all the love and support that you've been showing on the platform. Looks as though that's the direction we're headed right now. And like I said, I'll do my part here to make sure that we keep the community connected, because we are so much connected some way, somehow. But yeah. Welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks. Hey, Donnie, it's good to see you. Hey, Mama, I want you to stick around with me this evening. Connie Bonnie's in the house. Good evening, Auntie Sabrina. A kinder, gentler world, and to the massive. Marshall, North Carolina's representing. Good evening to you. Hey, Andrew. Good evening to you, my sweets. Good to have you here. Damian Henry, what words you got for us today? Good evening, all. Good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. And you're so right. No matter what language it's in, you're quite right there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And yes, Andrew is sharing the congratulatory message and shout outs to our new Deputy Governor, Ms. Gloria Nixon. Yes. We all share that. That's fine. Shout out, Jimmy. I'm quite sure he'll see the love afterwards, Connie Bonnie. Annie's in the house. How are you? Michelle as well, my sweet. Always good to see you. Thanks for the love. Good evening. Congratulations being shared there by Shenzhen. Yep. And Phil Stabler, you got NHS over there. DFA. Yeah, financial assistance. Yeah. Good evening, GB, my people from GB, Great Britain. Yep, we got a family over there as well. Family and friends, lovers, just please Like, share, and subscribe so your friends and you don't miss an episode. And to join in, yes, my love. Oh, girl. Yep. My girl's in the house. My girl's in the house. Baddest hairdresser on island just stepped in. But she got help me out. Oh, yeah. In the name of Jesus, she got to help me out. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for your understanding as well. Also to Petula, keep up the great work over there. The team at Slay, big you up. Always. It's good to have you locked in. And again, thank you for the love. Thank you for the support as well. 345-936 is the number to call to be a part of this discussion. Your comments, questions, participation is always welcome on whatever platform you're streaming us live on. But tonight we're going to be having a little bit of grown folk conversation. And it's not about, I said it at the beginning, it's really not political. I do my best. I stay away from that, but it is what it is. And we're going to point out some issues. And it stemmed from the article that Sandra wrote yesterday in regards to someone who was in 2 years in living in a Honda Fit or whatever type of car. It was, it's not about personalities. It's not about blaming anyone. It's not about getting after any agencies, but it's about the system that we are all living under. And we're getting more and more complaints of persons who are sleeping in cars, sleeping on beaches. And then you kind of wonder, what's their immigration status, right? But in regards to this case, a number of bells went off when I read this, because I'm like, this is bigger than just the ganja, if you understand what I'm saying, right? The system that shapes our safety, our immigration, our workforce, our community, and our future is what we're going to be looking at this evening. And in this recent case, that came about with this gentleman who lived in his car for 2 years, is what's being reported, couldn't leave the island, from what I'm understanding, because of a court matter. Let that sink in for a little bit. Couldn't work legally is what is also out there, and eventually ended up now going to be deported. But this show is not really focusing about him, right? I want to turn your attention, but using that as the hook. I want to look at the system that allowed this situation to exist. Yeah. Because when the system or systems don't really communicate, when they don't talk to each other, then people fall through the cracks, just like what we're seeing here. And when people fall through the cracks, that's signaling something on our community and our system, and the community itself feels the impact, be it good or be it bad. So I'm hoping this evening that we can try to break it down. I'll try to do this in plain English as I can, so that we can, not saying anybody is silly, but for discussion, so that we can pull away the curtain to see something is wrong with the system. But I want to look at how immigration works, how enforcement works, how government agencies are supposed to communicate, and what happens when they don't. Because obviously something went wrong here. And this, I'm going to look at it as more an eye-opener, education, and for clarification, you understand, for all of us, because it has to make sense to me, right? The case in point that I'm referring to is this. It is reported that this man lived in his Honda Fit for 2 years. He couldn't leave the island because a court ordered, him to, he was under court orders. And then his immigration authorization, from what is being alleged, expired. Now, if that was indeed the case, his legal ability to work would have had, he would have had issues, right? He became homeless. And then, of course, he used ganja to cope with depression, is what's being said. And then he eventually was arrested and now being set for deportation. Okay? My friends, this is not about whether he was smoking weed. This is about whether he made mistakes. It is not about that either. This is really about the fact that a human being was stuck in a system that wasn't designed, obviously, to handle his situation. And what I'm seeing here is when the system doesn't have a process for unusual cases, this, my friends, people get lost. There's a reason why I called out Donnie on this one, because, and I will call Miss Dawn out all the time because we used to work in immigration, so she'll get what I'm saying, right? I'm not telling you that we don't have overstayers that are going under the radar, but I can only go back to the days when we had less resources, less manpower. Yes, it was far less population here. But what I'm saying is we were apprehending offenders. What happened? What's happening? Right? If you're not a Caymanian, you must have some sort of a legal basis to be here. Am I not right? And that is either controlled by the legal basis, by a work permit, residency, visitors extensions that keep getting renewed because of, let's say in this case, a court order, or, like I said, on the grounds of a court restriction. Now, if that basis expires, technically you become an overstayer. And overstaying is illegal. But if the court stops you from leaving, you cannot fix your status, right? How does that work? Would it be a case then that the responsibility where you're here being bounded over by the court, whereas in this case, the case was actually thrown out? Where did the miscommunication fell on the wayside that one then remained here for 2 years in this state and was not picked up? That's what I'm talking about. Who would have been responsible then? Right. Who would have been responsible for saying, okay, this one is remanded over, or this one has to remain on the island because this is an ongoing investigation? Where is the communication with CBC? And another thing, if one was living in a car, what was the last address declared on the accommodation sheet? Who was the last employer that hired this gentleman if they were here on a work permit? Do you know that until that individual leaves this jurisdiction, the responsibility of this person would be the last valid work permit held? Yes. I tried to find legislation where it says in the event that, you know, in this case where one said he could not leave because he had a court matter, then the question lies, should there be exemptions somewhere carved out that a facility for one to work, obviously if they're not a spouse of a Caymanian, if they're not a PR holder, and they're here on a work permit, and let's say the reason for whatever they're going through did not cause a breakdown in the relationship between their last employer, would you not think it would make sense for that legal right for them to be able to earn a living so they don't find themselves in this situation should be normalized? I would think it would make sense, correct? Now, again, I stand to be corrected for any areas that is just not being clear enough for what is in the public's domain. The point I am trying to get at is that one is laying the blame on this country that they wanted to leave, but they couldn't because there was a court matter. The matter was eventually thrown out. So why couldn't one leave? That's the question. And because they were found with a small amount of weed is what is being reported, now they're being deported. I ain't got no problem with what the decision is. What I'm saying is, when was the case thrown out from that time to whenever they were found? What's the lapse in between that, and why were there no communication? Don't we run any more reports for overstayers anymore and go and set out for them? And we can make this very easy for overstayers. If you do an audit and you run an overstayers report list, especially with work permits, the legwork is joint because you have the legal right to give their employer or their last employer X amount of time to make sure that they either come in to regularize themselves or to show that they have departed the jurisdiction, bearing in mind the responsibility of these work permit holders rests on the shoulders of their last employer until they have departed this country. And if they're overstaying, it's either that their work permit was not renewed on time, or they were conditioned after the cancellation of a work permit or after the expiry of a work permit. That legal responsibility does not end until somebody else is issued another facility to that work permit holder. I'm just saying it's not rocket science. And this is a degradation of where our society is going down when we have all of these things that are happening. And I'm seeing the comments that we have a lot of persons who unfortunately have found themselves in this position. And in many cases, they still have valid work permits. Make it make sense. Finding themselves in the positions, what do I mean? That they're not even living where they say they're living. Who's doing the checks and balances? Where does the accountability lie? Should it be shared with the employer, or should it be just solely on our enforcers or persons who are watching, who are tasked with upholding the legislation? Imagine you're told you can't leave the island, but at the same time, you're not allowed to work, or you can't renew your work permit, and you can't go home to sort of, let's say, even your documents. Let's say it was a case where the work passport was expired. I'm just throwing it out there hypothetically. Pretty much you're stuck. You're frozen in limbo. And it continues to build. My problem that I'm seeing here is that we're still operating in silos. And that can happen to anyone when the system doesn't have a coordinated plan, when they don't talk to each other. When you look at the three agencies here, and just for full understanding, you got the courts, you got WORC, you got CBC. Those are the three main for this particular case. And what does the courts do? They handle criminal matters. They can also restrict travel. And they can delay someone's ability to leave. But there's a huge gap. Then who's responsible for their well-being? Then you got WORC. They handles the work permits. They handle residency and ensures that people have legal permission to be able to work in this jurisdiction. Okay. And then you have CBC. They handle overstayers. They handle deportations as well. And they also handle border control and enforcement. But look at this. Think of all of these agencies like three neighbors living on the same street. That's the analogy I'm going to drop here. Each one of them has a piece of the story, AKA a responsibility. But if they don't talk to each other, what is appearing to be happening, nobody knows the full picture. The court might say, you can't leave. Work might say, your work permit is expired. CBC may say, you're overstaying. But if nobody connects the dots, the person gets trapped in the middle. You see where I'm going with this? And what happens when the system don't talk? People get stuck. They can't work. They can't leave. They become homeless. They turn to coping mechanisms. Police get involved. Courts get involved again. CBC gets involved. And the public sees crime and definitely social decay. How much of this do we have going on right now that is not doing weed or that is not getting caught, that is probably not working, overstaying, and the agencies are not talking to themselves? Because what we're seeing, my friends, is when the system doesn't catch the problem early, as we've seen here, it becomes a bigger problem later. And by the time John Public sees it, it appears to be a social issue. But the root of the problem, to be honest with you, is administrative. And we need to hold these people accountable. This does not only rest on the permit holder, it's a shared responsibility in this particular case of even the last employer. Yes. Deborah Bodden says, we have too many people on this island. And she agrees. This case is sad. See, hi, Miss E.C. Banks. How are you? It's so good to have you here with us. Hey, Harry. How you doing? Miss Dorothy, good evening to you, my sweet. Always good to have you in the house. Deborah says, that's why we have so much robberies. Barbara G., good evening to you, my sweet. How are you? Good to have you here as well with us this evening. My regulars definitely making sure that they show me they're here, and I love to see you participating. But yeah, what we have seen here and the root of what we're seeing is administrative. What we're also seeing is the strain that these overstayers can have on resources. And we're talking national resources. I think I saw a comment where someone says, you collect this bond, but then what happens? Yeah, what happens to this non-refundable bond for the grant? And we see where illegal workers pretty much undercut wages as well, because some of them become so desperate. They could be actually on a work permit and a number is declared on an application form. And unless somebody go in and do an audit, which the DLP staff have the legal powers in their remit to do, to go in and do an audit and check pay slips to see if what's declared on staff's work permit aligns with what they're taking home. Homelessness as well. increases when these things happen. And if it is the case where even for the renewal of work permits, that you're just putting the same address on these accommodation sheets, no one knows for a fact that one, the place even exists. In an episode of The Cold Hard Truth, Sandra, in another topic, she realized that trade and business were linked to block and parcels that the address didn't add up. Is it the same thing happening right now on accommodation forms for work permits? As long as you fill out a form and something is in there, who is really charged with validating the fact that is contained there? And you don't see these things until you have crises like this. And when you then go to look at this isolated case, you go back 2 years and see that, oh my God, the truth of the situation, the poor man was homeless long before this came to head. You kind of wonder, where should the responsibility lie? We're saying we're doing immigration reform. The people are saying, look, we have too much people here. It's too easy to get through the system. Well, then let's start with this. Let's start with doing due diligence, proper due diligence, that you're proving people are living where they're living, and do spot checks, because there are complaints that there are a lot of work permit applications being submitted, and they're saying that somebody's taking home $2,200 when in fact they're going home with $300. When in fact they're going home with quarter of that. There are cases that in organizations that is infamous, that their staff pay 100% of the work permit. They pay all of their pension. And I'm understanding that the authorities know. Now, is it lack thereof of resources? Or there's lack of appetite to really apprehend? Okay? This is not to fairmonger. And I'm quite sure a lot of you know what's happening if you speak to some of the persons who are here that are victims of this. And you may say, well, Sabrina, they choose to be in it. Why take it on? I take it on because that is a true reflection that something is wrong with our system. And eventually, when you hear about human trafficking for sex trade, and you're seeing now where we're making all sorts of headlines for abuse against women, it all ties in at the end of the day. Yes. Don says, that's the problem. That can't even buy their ticket to return home. Well, I agree with you, Donnie. But if it gets to the case where you end up being destitute for whatever reason, and this country has to repatriate you back, and your last employer still has an active license, business being operated, that should be borne on both parties, if not solely the employer. The root of what I'm getting here is that employers have no clue of the legal liability that they take on when their company, if it's a limited liability company, or if they're a sole trader, Sabrina trading as ABC Construction, Sabrina trading as Batgirl Car Wash, as a sole trader, I have taken on the personal responsibility for every person that I employ, whether you're on or you're off duty. But what I'm saying is, if the relationship is broken down between me and a staff as a sole trader, right? It is my responsibility, because I understand the responsibility that I have, the liability that is on me, being the last person who had a valid work permit for that employee, that you leave this island, or I know when somebody else has taken on that liability by way of an approved work permit, because then it releases me of that responsibility. The law is there. And we have to educate our society with what they're taking on. And if you turn the focus where the responsibility is shared equally nationally and from the employer side of things, I think you will get a lot less frivolous work permits being applied for, because people will understand the responsibilities that they have taken on. Now, I said at the beginning, I was looking for legislation that says, clearly this is the mandate of the courts or the judiciary to alert CBC and WORC of what's happening, right? The laws are weak. And I was happy in one way when my research actually said there's not one sweeping piece of legislation, even though MOUs are now being built in for sharing of information because of Data Protection Act. I'm quite sure, all of my leaders, that you will get the overwhelming support of every Caymanian and resident alike who cares anything about this country, that they will understand, as long as it's data sharing within these three organizations in order to stamp out this type of lifestyle where we're seeing our society decaying, just pretty much going down the poop chute, you would get the support from every Caymanian to say, look, amend that data protection, but you all need to start talking to each other. Your interfacing systems need to start talking. Because how many situations right now are in this country probably far worse than this man? Why? Is it apathy? Is it the lack thereof of, we don't care? Or, yeah, we know, but look here, we just don't have the resources. We're stretched. Really? Well, then what direction do we want to go? What type of reputation do we want to have as a jurisdiction? Yes, because my friends, I can tell you this. When the system breaks down, the communities pays for the price, not just in dollars, Someone said this is why we got so much robberies. Because here's a fact. We paid a price, not in dollars alone, in safety, stability, and social cohesion. That's the result. Yes, that's what we get. Deborah says, what about people taking out work permits, but they don't have work for them? Then they have to find work and also pay the permit holder. Miss Deborah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. When you have persons that are writing contracts to say, oh yeah, this ABC company provides gardening, let's use a gardening company, for example, gardening services for me every week. And yeah, that's one. And then you get another one, but they keep using that one contract, not for that single work permit, but for work permits that comes thereafter that I probably don't even know of. How long could they be using my contract just to outline a list? And remember, that one contract for that one work permit can be extended on to others to justify volume. But where does it stop? Where does it stop? And I feel this is where we need to hold persons. You need to do an audit, because people are just doing it because, well, this is my little friend and they starting out a little business and I don't mind just giving them a contract just to get them started. And you know that they're not working with you. This, my friends, is what is eroding our society. those acts, those behaviors is what's eroding the system, the process. Because if they can't justify that they have sufficient work to issue a 1-year work permit, then guess what? How are they going to get paid? How are they going to get paid? Angela says, yes, I think that's how the release letter comes in. Yeah, but the release letter doesn't release you until fully, if you have to, let's say, split hairs, until you're still legally responsible for that person until they are off the island. They're not just here on their own accord, technically. And I will beg anyone who's in the legal field to actually clarify that. Because the last person that these people were for, should anything happen, the reason why they were here, either you brought them in for first time, or the reason why they continue to be here is because you had a desire to retain their services. This is why when they go to get conditioned after the cancellation of a work permit, the reason for seeking an extension to facilitate departure, you're not really given that time to find another employer. With seeking to facilitate departure, you are severing those legal responsibilities of the former employer and almost doing a reset. That's what you're doing. So at the end of the day, you got to know what responsibilities you're taking on. Don says, that's why the mass grant gave us and the boards know it too much under, that's what the mass grants gave us and the boards know it too much under the mass grants gave us this everyone want to own a business and have no idea what it takes to run a business. You're quite right, which is why I'm taking the opportunity right now to educate the public. We got the incentive of just paying the filing fee for Caymanians, and now I'm seeing they're tightening that up to create an environment, and I'm all for entrepreneurship, but you gotta understand the liability, the responsibility that you're taking on as well as an employer, be it you're a sole trader, and you got protection if you're a limited liability company. Yes, there's more protection there. Let's take the call. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind?
Good evening, Sabrina.
Hi.
Legal person chiming in here. If I understand your question correctly, you were seeking confirmation that if you have an individual here on a work permit that you, let's just say, knowingly do not need that person, are you still responsible for this?
I was saying that once a work permit is canceled or ends, let's say the relationship broken down, and you give them the release letter as in saying or communicating this person is no longer in my employ, I released them without any obligation. Right, by right, the question on the extension form to condition them usually should mean you're facilitating your departure from the islands. Until they get another employer.
It's not a confirmation to facilitate departure because the law as it stands does not require a person when they are either relinquishing a work permit, terminating their employment, it doesn't require them to leave the island. So no, that termination letter only signifies the end of that working contractual relationship, and it notifies work that you are, or no, that person is no longer in your employ.
So who then, like this particular case, he became destitute, a hybrid, because he had a court matter. Who then bore responsibility for this particular case?
Well, forgive me because I'm just chiming in, and I'm assuming you're talking about the gentleman who that we know was living in his vehicle,
for 2 years.
blah, 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 as a matter of being overstayed. So I think that scenario is very different than the scenario that you are proposing. So in his case, as I understand, as a result of a pending conviction He was not allowed to have a work permit and therefore deemed an overstayer. I think that that is absolute garbage. And I'll tell you why. If the wheels of justice turn slowly, they should not turn that slowly, because as a result of the slowness in which it took to deal or to dispose of the criminal matter that was before the court, the man found, had it not been for that, he probably would not have ended up as an overstayer.
Which is
Does
what
that
I'm
make
saying, that the working in silos need to stop, because what we're seeing is a degradation in society because of an administrative fault. It looks as though the government departments are not talking to each other. And what happens with the audits that they used to do, that report that shows overstayers? There is something that says, the judiciary sends a report over to the director of WORC. I covered that here.
Every month.
Exactly.
Every
so then who
month.
is cleaning that? Who is cleaning that to double check that these
Cleaning
people
it,
are
but
being...
we have to know that it's being done. You are assuming that it's being done. And again, where is the audit trail to ensure that these things are being carried out? What I'm saying is, he would have only become, he may have been known to work as an overstayer because of the ending of his immigration status, be it a work permit holder, or whatever the case was, right? So that status ended, and that would have automatically put him into being a overstayer, right? What he should have or could have done, and again, this again, to me, it comes when we have to appreciate not everybody has the ability to navigate what is legally happening to them,
But then
and
who the responsibility lies on then? Is it the gentleman should have reported back to WORC or CBC? We don't know the intricacy details of his case with his ability to work during this time and before the case thrown out that got him into this position. What I'm trying to get at is that nationally, the judiciary is above CBC and WORC, just in the ranking, the pecking order. Okay? But at the end of the day...
But remember that the judiciary is also an entirely separate arm of government. And the two do not, let me air quote that as well, commingle, right? And they must be seen as separate. They must be seen as separate for fair and to be balanced, and so that decisions aren't appearing unfair or muddled.
But when situations like this happen, let's say, but
there ought to be communication.
Exactly.
Because obviously, but what I'm saying is, in the absence of that proper communication, in my opinion, had it been a relative of mine, this would be a breach of his human right. This would be a breach of his human right, and I'll tell you why. He was not properly advised. He was ill-advised. So he was ineligible, if I understand the facts of this situation correctly. He became ineligible for a work permit because of a pending charge. I think that the judiciary, they may not have a legal obligation, but I do think that they have an unspoken obligation to notify work. This individual's immigration status is going to be affected. He is now with charge. Please update your system. The courts are the most fit person to know that the gentleman was not a Caymanian, right? That information should have been immediately passed on to work. In my mind, it must have been to some degree passed on to work in order for it to affect his ability to get another work permit. But the fact that nobody said to this man, hey, sir, you need to go and request time, have your status updated, explain to work that, I can't get a work permit. I can't leave. And he was not permitted to leave the island because he was pending with charges. I believe that this falls squarely on the shoulders of the government, the judiciary, and the Department of Immigration.
Which means it's a national issue, correct?
they have allowed the man to commit an offense. In law, there's something called the but-for cause, right?
But for
Now,
cause.
let me be clear, the causation of it. He is the cause of his own problems. Nobody sent him out there to commit any illegal acts. However,
It highlighted. Go ahead.
however, he committed that illegal act, thus changing his immigration status, right? He should have been advised of that. He should have been advised of that.
My thing is, how
And
was he able to stay for 2 years and go under the radar?
Because I don't think that he was going under the radar. He was going to court. How could that be under the radar?
Gotcha.
How could that be under more than...
And nobody
this is
thought of looking for a
multi-agency
welfare check to see how are you supporting yourself, where are you staying, and nothing until
Well,
they
nobody is checking on air quote criminals. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. And in reality, they would have deemed him ineligible for assistance from the DFA in any event.
And community rehabilitation, then you have to see where that fine line draws there. Yeah.
Correct. This would have made him ineligible for assistance, or I don't believe at current, and I stand corrected if I do have this incorrect. At present, I don't believe that there's anything in legislation that would have allowed the government to provide any form of financial assistance.
It's not clear.
For him.
It's not, but.
Right? But what I'm saying is, however.
No, he could have. He could have gone to DFA.
Again, but what I'm saying is, when you don't understand, I promise you that the gentleman was not here as an attorney. He is not here as an accountant. He's not here in any, and I don't want to demean him. He's more than likely here as an ordinary, common laborer, worker, minimum wage worker. Okay? I think that not every time, but it's usually a good indicator of your aptitude, right? And so I just think that this was a multi-agency failure to this gentleman. Again, I am not excusing any criminal behavior or alleged criminal behavior on his part. What I'm saying is that justice has to be for everyone. It has to be for everyone, and it can't just be for the people that we like, right? And all I'm saying is his immigration status had been altered because of a criminal act, alleged criminal act on his part. The courts were aware enough to the extent, and if I have this wrong, I stand corrected, that the immigration became aware that he could not get an additional permit because of pending criminal charges. So something had to be communicated up to work, immigration, whatever they're called, correct? So where does or did the breakdown happen?
That's the big question.
That,
and
somebody doesn't step in and say, first of all, let's expedite this case so that this gentleman can be put before the courts, dealt with, and the matter disposed of properly. And if the end result was that he was to be deported, then that would be the case. But the way I feel and see it is that their negligence caused him to be an overstayer. I'm sorry, but Sabrina, it brings you to a bigger question, right? And again, if this man was living in his vehicle for 2 years, he did not have access or did not have the means to have access to proper legal advice. We're going to assume that just based on what the information that we know. He didn't have access to proper legal advice. That's a breach of his human right. That's a breach of his human right. And for all of those people out there that go and be clamoring, because I know my people, he don't Cayman. The law does not
discriminate.
The law,
the Constitution says it.
Discriminate. The law does not. You owe
For a fair
everyone
trial.
within your shores
Has.
the same right
Mm-hmm.
to a fair trial,
Trial. Mm-hmm.
to be heard and tried by a jury of their peers,
Mm-hmm.
meaning a jury.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, and you must have access to proper and adequate legal representation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I never made that up. That is the law.
It's in law. Mm-hmm.
Nobody shows up to court without a lawyer or with a less than what money can buy lawyer because that's what they've chosen. Nobody does that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do not even understand fundamentally that, number one, you do not have to answer any questions when being questioned by a police. You don't have to. You can
You
give
have the
a
right to
no
remain
comment
silent.
interview.
Yeah. And they
You have the right to remain silent, right? People don't understand that. And this is not about being nefarious or uncooperative, but in the U.S. Constitution, the Miranda rights are, they allow you to draw adverse inferences.
You're right.
So does this Constitution, right? But it says, you cannot say if you do not say something which you choose to later rely on, you may not be able to rely on it, right? Keep your mouths closed.
Yep.
Keep your mouths
But with the immigration reform that's going on right now, do you feel then, because like I said earlier on, I was trying to find some sort of legislation that says, right now there's not one single piece of legislation that I could find that says all agents must automatically report to each other, but that creates
when
this
you
rule.
Say agents, what does that
government
mean?
Agencies, meaning government departments, right? That would actually avoid situations like this from happening. When you talk about those agencies that I'm speaking about, customs, CBC, border, the judiciary, understanding the separation of powers, I get it. But if we're seeing where we're having an increase in persons right now, and remember, good old data protection and confidentiality act is there, these MOUs must be used, I feel, or could be considered so that we can catch these things, that it don't become a case where the system, as you're seeing, as you've said, that it looks as though the system have failed in this particular case. That made the situation worse than, if you understand what I'm saying.
I think it's more than mere than looks that way.
Right.
The system has failed.
Yeah.
This gentleman, right? Let me tell you my bigger concern, Sabrina. And forgive me for going on about my soapbox about Caymanians and the failings to the Cayman people. But we the ones that got live here. We got our beings here. And we have our lives here. Right here. Right? And if we can't get the system right for them, how are we going to get it right
ourselves?
For us?
My point. And
you
it
understand?
Still goes down to enforcement. Because if the gatekeepers are not gatekeeping, even with the legislation.
The sad part about it, no, the gatekeepers are gatekeeping for the ones that are important to them. For the ones that are important to them. And that's a really sad reality in this country. And they say, closed mouths don't get fed. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Does it though? Does it though? I could go on. I mean, I would love if the new DG would love to have a conversation with me about just standard customer service within core government. Just those things. And what I'm only highlighting this, right? Because if we have macro failings on micro levels, we have macro failings. That is the bottom line. Right? Why is it that somebody being charged with an offense, that information is not being passed on to the records department in a timely manner? Why is that not happening? Why is it that Sabrina got charged for, I don't know, DUI,
Mm-hmm.
and that ain't passed on yet? Well, that's not a chargeable offense, but Sabrina, what you did, what crime you committed? Trespass,
Yeah. Hold on. Let me merge.
right?
Let me see if I can merge this call because you called straight. Hold on. Let me merge. Let me see if I can. Okay. The call is, we're merging. We got both callers are online. So both the call has been merged. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Who am I so lucky to be on with?
You're on with Miss Brenda. Is on
Don't tell her.
Oh.
You shouldn't have told her. You shouldn't have told
Oh,
her.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was actually calling to listen to me.
Mhm.
I was calling to tell her, get off the phone.
Mhm.
Tonight is my law and order night, and I wanted a chance to say something. So
Oh.
I was calling to say, time out, hang the phone up.
Hang up.
Hang
Okay.
it up, hang it up, hang it up,
Next
hang it up.
caller, please.
No, don't hang up. Don't hang up, because I'm sure I can leave you on.
Okay, go
But
ahead.
Okay.
since you are talking about what you are talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes,
got
ma'am.
more than 50 cents worth to add to this.
Go
Well,
ahead.
give him a dollar. Give him a dollar.
$1.50.
Go
But
ahead.
anyway,
Go ahead.
let me say this. And before I say what I'm about to say, I just want to make it clear. I am not in any way trying to lay this blame on the now sitting government.
But we
okay?
weren't talking
But
about it. I said that at the intro of the show. This is not political.
Yeah, but like I said, I just came on.
Right.
But I don't want to be accused that I'm trying to blame the newcomers for this. But let me just say, it is very sad that we are going to use this person as an example, if that's what it is. When we have Filipinos, Nepalese, and Indians
Mm-hmm.
sleeping in cars, sleeping on the beach, sleeping down by the dock by
Miss Cove. Miss
Hold on.
Cove.
We don't have Smith Cove. We have Smith back there. Please get it right. We just say you
Take
from
that. Take that.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. I
Get it
loving
right.
this. I'm
I
loving
stand
this.
corrected.
I got turned it. Look at it. The Turks and Caicos people tell ya, look ya, you're not from ya. You're not from ya. Okay? So when they tell you not from ya, you better know what that means. Pack your hopper rags and find the airport. But they don't wrong. Anyway, but we don't have a Smith Cove, we have a Smith back there. So let's leave it at that. Lobster Pot. That's the place I was trying to remember.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Where they have the
Mm-hmm.
boat
By
ramp.
the helicopter
They are
landing there. Mm-hmm.
Yes, they sleep out there on the garbage bags. Okay? They sleep up at Smith back there. They're sleeping, they're living in their cars, going up on the cliff rocks and fishing with catching little tiny fish. I don't even know if they're the size of sprats. So my question is, and pictures have been taken, videos have been taken,
Mm-hmm.
it has been passed on to who it needs to go to.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm asking, my question, why haven't we heard of any of them being picked up
Mm-hmm.
and sent home?
Mm-hmm.
And let me back up a minute.
Mm-hmm.
When you wake these people up
Mm-hmm.
and you ask them what they're doing there, you know what they tell you? When you say, where do you live? Why are you out here sleeping? Oh, no, I'm here. I'm waiting to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
Say what?
Goes back to what I was
You
saying
are
earlier.
waiting
Mm-hmm.
to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And you are sleeping on the beach and you are sleeping in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, because this could easily be looked at and not confused as discrimination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But just for full disclosure, I said at the beginning, and I know you said you missed it, that this was not pointing out the case because the article was so fresh. We are looking at the process, the system, the communication, the working in silos, and how a lot more is probably going missed because we, and Siobhan actually said it, she feels that the system has failed this particular case. So we weren't doing it.
Yes.
The whole impetus of the show was to point out the importance because of speaking to each other, because I could not find any single piece of legislation where it allows for the various government departments, right, to say, well, this is what you should do. It breaks down the responsibilities of CBC, WORC, and the judiciary. And there was an immigration amendment included back in 2025, some of the 25 changes, which I think that's still not yet commenced, that is expanding the scope of information for immigration-related departments. But again, are they speaking to one another to be able to catch these things? And as you've alluded to, the videos, the pictures, all the nationalities. Why is this happening? Go ahead.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in? Either there is a willful.
Just hold on a minute. Again, I wasn't suggesting in any way that your show was doing that, okay?
Okay.
That was my overall
synopsis. Okay.
And question to this scenario. And let me add to that. I have a feeling that what is happening now is because we have an immigration reform bill, and they have, I guess it has been made very clear to them that their job now is to enforce it. So they have all gone and started here. I don't think they just found out about this person. I guess that's a rub me feel good situation. But guess what? You're scratching the wrong surface, because all of those who are named out just now and anybody else that needs to be added to that, they are the ones, because they come in a couples. They need to be scooped up and sent back home. And since it's deportation that is being attached to it, but let's hope they're deported also, not just sent home. And the other thing, if I don't know the circumstances with this man, I ain't taking this man's side. I don't know anything about what his circumstances were. I only read about the story. But if they had kept that repatriation fee in effect, you know what? If it was a case of where he didn't have the money to get back home, he could have gone to immigration and they would have bought his ticket for him, and he could have gone home. I'm sure he got home to go too. Everybody that is here got home.
But Miss Brenda,
people that don't have a home.
Criminal charges.
We are here.
His pending criminal charges.
With our country being saturated by everyone else. So we are the Novarians.
Okay, listen to what Siobhan has to say.
His pending criminal charges would still not have allowed him to take advantage of that repatriation fee. They've now changed that repatriation fee to a non-refundable fee.
It's a non-refundable bond is what they have it labeled as.
For shits and giggles, if you ask me.
So if he is criminally charged and being deported under any other circumstances, the government would still send him home.
Absolutely.
If you and I went to Canada, the good old USA, or anywhere else, and we committed a crime that was deemed deportable, guess what? They were going to put us on a plane. They didn't care where we're going, as long as they're leaving their country.
Well, you see what they're doing with them ones up there. There and everywhere.
No. Well, I say that in all seriousness, because those incidents have happened where Caymanians were being deported from the U.S. And they were being sent to Jamaica. Okay? Sent to Jamaica. They didn't care that they weren't Jamaicans. They had their Cayman passport. Guess what? Just be gone.
Yeah, they're not on our soil is what they did. Yeah, they clean house.
But I wanted to say something in response to a comment Miss Brenda made, and sorry, and she spoke about people living in their vehicles, right? We had Caymanians doing that, and it took public platform and outcry for something to be done about it, right? I'm sure she knows. I just want to remind her though, and the public, it is not a criminal offense to live in your vehicle. It is not a criminal offense to not have a place to live.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. The criminal offense apparently was that he was smoking marijuana.
Correct. Because you spoke earlier about all of these people living in their vehicles and the stuff, right? And that stuff, which I think is atrocious, because if you cannot be here on your own recognizance,
Mm-hmm.
you should not be here. You can either afford to live in this country or you cannot.
But
It
then
is,
in
it
this
is quite that
particular
simple.
case, the
Devon,
court.
listen, I beg to differ. 75% of them cannot afford to live here, but you know why
I
they're
agree.
here? Because NAU's taking care of them. That's why Caymanians can't get any help. Okay?
Mhm.
And also,
Wait,
I didn't say that him living in his car or sleeping out of doors or whatever was a criminal offense.
no, but that's
Based
why
on
I'm
what
telling
I
you. That's why I'm
understood,
only saying why
yeah,
they're
no,
so
I'm just
keen to
saying,
do it.
based
Is that
on what
because
I understand, the criminal and even overstaying one's time is not a criminal offense. Okay? That's
well,
not
in
just
this case it
applicable in
was,
the US.
and I think it's
It is
up to
also
the court.
applicable here. It is not a criminal offense. It's an immigration offense, which is far different from criminal. But
Mhm.
as far as I understood it, it was the fact that he was smoking marijuana,
Mhm.
which,
Mhm.
as we know, is still deemed a criminal offense
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
Correct.
The point I am trying to make, he is not the only one that is out there
Mhm.
committing
Bottom
criminal
line.
offenses,
Mhm.
sleeping
Mhm.
outside, doing whatever, overstaying. Some of them are robbing. Some of them are coming into people's yards, stealing their stuff out of their yards, and nobody's doing anything about it. And like I said, forget about showing them your cameras or showing videos with it
Yeah.
happening. Eh? Why aren't they? Since this man's punishment was to be deported,
Mhm.
why is it that others aren't picked up? That was my question.
Because
And being deported as well.
his, and I'll explain that, right? You can't deport someone just because you have to charge them. They have to be guilty of that offense, and it has to be an offense. So the way the law reads in terms of deportation, the court, so immigration does not have the, and I won't
Ability
word this
to,
correctly
yeah.
because I
They
don't
don't have
want
the ability
immigration
to do the deportation order.
have the ability in and of themselves to make an order for deportation.
That's a
What
recommendation
they
by the
do
court
have
to
the
the governor.
capacity, correct. So that recommendation must come down from the court to the director of work saying, this is our recommendation. And to be fair, and I'm not suggesting
listen, I know that and I understand that. I guess what I should have said, my question is rhetorical. In other words, if it's good for one, it should be good for all. And
I agree. But again, it depends on the seriousness.
Hold on,
on, one at a time.
Is because they don't want that deportation order attached to them if they in fact pick them up and take them before any judge.
Well, isn't there, once they get sentenced for longer than 6 months, that's automatic anyhow for deportation. But they would have to get a sentence for 6 months or more.
It has to be a 6 month imprisonment. It has to be a 6 month imprisonment.
Mm-hmm.
Did I read it wrong? Didn't the article say he got 2 days?
2 days, 2 days. So
okay,
exactly, Miss Brenda, I see where you're going.
Please.
You know, I see where you're going with this.
Hold on.
Yeah, but he had multiple offenses. That immigration offense would have rendered him eligible for deportation.
Break this down to me like I'm 5 years old. So if it has to be 6 months plus, he got 2 days. I don't know if he had any other criminal charges on him. The way the article was written, it was like this was a first time thing. So I asked the question again, the rhetorical question, how was a deportation order attached to him for smoking a stick of weed?
So my understanding, and again, I stand corrected.
The majority of the world.
My understanding was he was caught a first time. He was processed and charged.
So why he wasn't sent home the first time?
Because you can't deport somebody without them going before the courts, being charged and found guilty. You can't that's a breach of their human rights.
Immigration and customs officers are also law enforcement officers.
But they
have
the court.
The authority to arrest you and so on. So
they have the authority to detain you.
Any arm of the government that has the authority to arrest you, they can bring charges against you. You take it to the courts and you let the courts deal with it. So if he was caught more than one time doing whatever it was he was doing, then I would say His circumstances were very well known. And the very first time, they should have been dealt with. I suspect this goes back to what I said earlier. They are doing this as a smoke screen to make it look like, oh yes, enforcement
We're doing
has
something.
started.
We're doing
But you know
something.
what? I would say it has started when they start dealing with all.
Mm-hmm. I see. You want it fair and balanced, straight across the board.
No, and I'm not suggesting that it shouldn't be. I'm definitely suggesting that it should be, right? But again, just to go back to her earlier statement, I am only bringing a point. So when you come here and you get a grant or whatever, you have to complete an accommodation form, right? That accommodation form is filled out by your landlord,
employer, and
wherever.
executed by yourself. 3 signatures are on that.
Correct. Right? And I'm saying, well, I'm sorry, Sabrina, unless you have a palace up there, you shouldn't have 14 accommodation forms on file.
So who does that? Who
I'm
does
sorry.
that behind the scenes? You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The
You
Cayman
shouldn't
Islands
have
subject to
14
1980.
accommodation
Yes, we are,
files
Harry.
on
And
form, on
this-
file. But however, but
and
they're
this is
allowed
why
to
I
get away
say-
with things like living in their cars and sleeping on the beach
Because
and
nobody's
stuff.
double checking
Because
that the information that is declared on the
Not-
forms are legit.
Not even that. Nobody, because it is not a criminal offense to live in your vehicle.
And no one is suggesting that.
It's not an offense. That's why they're not being caught.
My question to this scenario is, baby, and this is not rhetorical, was this man here? Clearly he was on Cayman status, but he didn't have residence. So was this man on a work permit?
That was my question. What was his true immigration status all the time?
That was my...
Well, we know he didn't have PR, and we know he didn't have status. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been deported for smoking a stick of weed. Okay?
My understanding in the whole thing was that he was a work permit holder. He got caught smoking marijuana.
This is crazy. The
that
system
altered.
It's
that altered his legal status on the island with the work permit, thus not allowing.
And the point I am making, Siobhan, it is at that juncture that the man then should have been sent home. If his work permit was being refused, the only other option...
But he couldn't be sent home. I'm not suggesting that what they did was logical, you know. I'm just trying to explain what I think from what I can see, what happened, right?
Remember now, the courts have the right to stop someone from leaving the jurisdiction.
Correct. Which is what I understood occurred in that instance.
I'm saying this is a matter. Now that you're now saying this wasn't the first time. And I am saying, well, then it was a matter that could have been dealt with that did not even have to be taken to court. So why not deal with it? If somebody is on this island, they don't have a work permit, they're not married to anyone that binds them here, then they are here illegally. You have every right to send them home.
Remember, there's a status between...
Hold on. When a work permit is up or a work permit is revoked, you get 2 weeks to pack your happy rights and leave.
Which is what I will go back to.
Status between...
But
there's a status between...
Hold on, one at a time, please.
It should have been dealt with from the first instance. Okay? That is the point I'm making here, whether it's been understood or not. And I'm going to go back to where I started. I don't like that this whole thing started with a Jamaican national.
Gotcha.
Because they are not the only ones that are here abusing the system. If we can take pictures and videos of Filipinos, of Nepalese and Indians out there sleeping on our beaches, come here on a visit, staying here, looking for a job, they have long overstayed their time. They have the evidence and where to find the people. Why haven't we not read about any of them being scooped up and escorted to the airport and put on a plane out of here, whether by deportation or just returned to their country? That's my question.
Maybe because they weren't caught doing a joint
don't-
or a
I
blunt
don't
or
like
sleeping in
this-
their car. You see what I'm saying? Because they
I
weren't
don't
caught.
like- I don't like the precedents.
Gotcha.
Okay? I
Mhm,
don't like the precedents. That's the point I'm making.
mhm,
I think it started in the wrong place.
mhm.
And I'm not being biased to any nationality.
Nationality.
It applies to all. I don't care where they came from.
Mhm, mhm.
Too much of this nonsense is going on. And if this is how enforcement, let's just say, if this is the beginning of enforcement,
We
let's
got-
hope it goes across the board.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm hanging up. I will let Siobhan finish you for the rest of the evening. I'll continue to listen.
No, we may have some other callers. I got some comments that are coming in too. So just stick with me, please. You can keep listening, and if it's anything, you can call back. But we're having some comments.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Siobhan, there's a WhatsApp that I got. I have a question on this topic. If he could not return home pending the close of his case, do we know if he turned over his passport to any relevant authorities during the time?
We don't know.
And if so,
We don't know.
how would he have been able to obtain time in his passport if it was not in his possession? So again,
So we don't know.
we
So
don't
we
know
don't know all of
those,
that information.
but what we are
Right.
looking at is the overall breakdown of the system. And what I'm seeing
But the
is
overall,
what I'm seeing is
sorry,
right.
the overall picture that has been presented, though, that we know at the bare minimum, without all of the feathers and everything else attached to it, we do know that this man was. It didn't suggest that he entered Cayman illegally.
Correct.
Doesn't suggest that. So he came here legally. He ended here illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you go from, I guess in legal terms, when you go from visitor to trespasser, right? So his legal status when he came here, and we're going to have to infer that he was here on a work permit. There's no indication that the man came to Cayman illegally. So we're going to have to infer that he came here on a work permit. Usually, when you are pending charges, and I'm going to put serious in air quotes, serious charges, like this man, they usually require you to surrender your travel document or put up a surety. Sometimes, if they consider him a flight risk.
You're disconnected, Ms.
If they
Brenda.
consider,
I don't have you anymore.
yeah.
There's only
If they
Siobhan. Sorry.
if they consider him a flight
risk.
Yeah, if they consider him a flight risk, they would usually request a surrender of his passport. But what we do know, if the facts are correct that of the information that we have, is as a result in the change of his status from visitor to trespasser or overstayer, whatever you want to call him, right? He was no longer allowed to have gainful employment because that was the deemed to be not possible because he was pending a criminal charge.
What if he had come to the end of his term limit? What if he would there be a case where then possibly that it was a hybrid? Miss Brenda is calling back. Let me try to merge again.
In the absence of proper legal advice, this man would have continued to remain in limbo.
You're merged, Miss Brenda. You were disconnected, Miss Brenda.
Well, for some reason, this happened to me the other time when I called you. When I ended my call, I couldn't hear you anymore.
I don't know, but you weren't connected at all to me. It was only Siobhan on the line.
Okay, because there was no volume, so I couldn't hear you. Can you just don't hang up, please?
No, I didn't do anything. You disconnected directly from me.
Well, just let me see if I can hear you on here. Don't hang up, please.
Okay, go ahead, Siobhan.
But yeah, so like I said, his status changed as a result of criminal charges that were pressed
Siobhan,
against him.
Sorry, no, I'm still not hearing you.
Maybe you want to, come out completely, disconnect, hang up, and go out and come back in.
Oh, okay, because I did that too and came back and it still couldn't hear. So I'll do that again.
Yeah, but just hang up completely and then or let me hang up from you. Let me drop your call and then you go out and come back in.
Right.
All right, let me drop you now.
Okay. Right.
Okay, so she's call conference is done. Go ahead. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Yeah. So at some point, we know that there must have been, again, we have to infer that there was some communication between the judiciary and the Department of Work that did not allow him to either extend his time, and he wasn't allowed to get a work permit. Did I read that wrong?
Boy, I don't know. And I just look at the unfortunate. I just wanted to look at the system and not necessarily look directly at the case, because everything that we've highlighted here, no matter the nationality, no matter exactly whether or not this is a test case, the fact still remains there is a flaw in the system. And when you look for the separation of powers, the judiciary itself doesn't have a duty to report to CBC or work in any way, you know, because
Yes, they do.
of exactly.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
how.
They have that report. They have a report that they share on a monthly basis. Yes, they do.
Yeah, to the
We
director.
spoke about this
To the
before.
director, yeah, to the
Correct.
director of W.
Correct.
But like what you said, is it being done? And who is scrubbing it?
How do we know though? And how do we test it?
Yeah.
Right. And these are where audits and auditors come into play,
Right.
to ensure that these things are being done. However, and this ain't no excuse, but I want to remind the public that Chief Justice Honorable Margaret Ramsey, at her last at the last opening of Grand Court in January, I want to say, she stressed to the entire government in attendance how strained the judiciary was for resources. And I don't think she just meant bodies on the ground.
Right.
Right? We still have a very manual legal system. Judges taking notes with pens.
Yeah.
Charges being laid with pens. Anybody can make a mistake. You know, you have a child. You have a child that is. I heard of an instance that a former police officer who's retired from the force said, "Y'all not seen nothing yet. You got to see when Sabrina, who is a raging criminal, had Sabrina Jr. and all of Sabrina's charges, because nobody cared enough to do it the right way. All of Sabrina's whatless Sabrina charges ended up on Sabrina Jr.'s police record.
What?
And now Sabrina Jr. has to
Hold on a second.
prove.
Continue, Siobhan.
That, yeah, and Sabrina Jr. has to prove that this is not me. I didn't commit. I didn't do this.
Right.
This is the wrong person.
Oh, wow.
Right? You have two people with the same name. Right? Father and son. You know?
But I'm quite sure they would be able to look to see when these things happen. Siobhan, that has nothing to do
Sabrina,
with the price of
the
oil.
law
Rice in
requires
China.
the law requires them to provide a report to work every month.
Yeah, I
and
know,
we
it's
are
in there.
still here
So I take it back.
questioning
Exactly.
whether or not that's done, and we're assuming that these other things aren't done. And again, in the absence of somebody who is prudent and robust about justice, these things go overlooked. These things go overlooked. I am right now in the middle of assisting someone who was arrested for an offense, was, by my account, I am going to say, I deemed them innocent. I'm not the DPP, but I looked at it, and the DPP said there was not enough evidence to charge the person, to charge him with an offense.
We have
that person stayed with charges from 2021 to 2023, and all he wants are his fingerprints back. In 2026, he can't get them yet. We're in 2026. So what if a dirty cop wants to plant evidence?
We got her called her on the merge. We got somebody else merged.
Using that person's fingerprints. I mean, it's just a failure all around.
Well, we've opened it up to here. We had the real conversations. Good evening, caller. You're merged.
Good evening, Sabrina, and good evening, Siobhan. This is Carrie from the BRAC. I'll be nice.
Hello, Carrie.
I promise. No,
You
no
better
dirty-
behave, or I'll come down there and spank you.
No kidding. Well, first of all, I definitely can talk about quickly what you said just now, Siobhan, about the party not getting their fingerprints and stuff back. When they dropped the matter with me, the DPP office dropped the matter. They gave me a letter saying I need to email somebody to get my evidence that they took, all my DNA and stuff that they took to have that retrieved. And I live in the BRAC, and I've sent that email from last year, and I've called and chased it up, and still nothing has been sent to me. So we have major system broken down all across all of our agencies in this country. And I just want to say this. With respect to that individual that was in the courts with getting 2 days in prison and whatever for overstaying, when his permit expired or he surrendered it or it was terminated by his employer, he gets to go to the CBC. He's then now no longer a WORC responsibility. And we're not getting to that point because WORC does absolutely nothing with people's time and regularizing you in the country. That is the CBC. So he has been afoul of the CBC for the entire time. And as a CBC officer, whom I will not name, because I want him to get their pension, told me their system is so behind the times. They don't know who has overstayed in this country, and they themselves suspect there's thousands of overstayers in the country to that at that specific time when we were talking, and their system cannot flag anyone. The minute your time in the country goes over and you haven't gone in and gotten what they call being regularized, and that CBC has to do that as well. When you don't go and get regularized, then the system should automatically flag you, and the minute you go into an 100%. Overstaying status, 100%. Immediately. And then the other thing is, with respect to that accommodation form, the CBC don't have access to that accommodation form. That is WORC. So CBC can't go and locate anybody because they don't know where they is. Even if the system did flag you and say you had overstayed.
But this is
that
where
don't go to the CBC.
The whole amendment is coming, where there's better, clear communication. So this stop working in silos actually stops, because it's going to go down. Our society is going to go worse if they don't have better interfacing between the various government departments in order to do this.
Amen. They need to do that, because he shouldn't have been overstayed that long. There are people here right now in this country that I can afford to tell you went, I guess, underground, you want to call it, since Hurricane Ivan. Do you know after Hurricane Ivan, 1,500 plus people were unaccounted for? They never left this country. And all to this day, nobody has found them or they're accounted for. So where are these individuals? Where are they? We have not been answered. That question has never been answered by any agency in this country that deals with border control, because they don't have a system, and it's not the employees of the CBC fault, is the systems that they don't have that is up to date and modernized that will allow them to know what is taking place with an individual.
Correct.
And like I said, with the accommodation form, that goes to work. So CBC don't even have access to that. They can't see where you live last. And who's to say you're even living at that address? Because I've had rogue staff in my business, and I have gone to the addresses and the accommodation forms, and they never lived there. So
or in some cases, they don't even exist.
Exactly. Thank you very, very much, Sabrina. They don't even know that.
Google Maps is a universal tool, and you mean to tell me that somebody processing an application for 53-star clothes can't type in 53 star close and ensure that
didn't I tell you?
Grass?
As long as something is on the form, nobody checks the validity. I've been repeating that because you're only there to process.
Until work permits become more than just a source of revenue to this government, to the government and to the country, these things are going to continue to be just falling by the wayside.
It's been that way, Siobhan, for a very long time. And the more we talk about it, the less attention is paid to it, the less it's being addressed. And that's the most unfortunate situation, because those of us who raise it are told that we are naysayers and all we do is row and complain.
And
we can't get access to the system to go and find these people. Why don't they have access for our help? We'll go look for them.
It's true. And Ms. Brenda,
I keep telling them, I will volunteer to do the Friday roundup.
Well, but you will volunteer. Do that back in the day. Like Ms. Brenda said,
I will drive the party wagon. And I will volunteer.
The governor used to go and do roundups at Flowers Block Factory right on the junction of Shedden Road in North Soundway for years in Eastern Avenue. Every week there was a bunch of people being collected.
Since we're on the grounds of WORC immigration, we're going to just label it under one umbrella this evening. There is a press release that was just released, and I'll read it for the sake of all of you so we'll know what's happening. I have from a reliable source that this board is no longer, it has totally been replaced. And the board, I stand to be corrected, has not had any legal operational function. And I'm talking about the BSP board, but I quote in a press release, the Ministry of the Caymanian Employment and Immigration announces the repositioning of the Business Staffing Plan BSP board to refocus its purpose towards issues that matter most to Caymanians: employment, career advancement, and reducing underemployment across the workforce. This shift reflects the government's commitment to building a workforce system that delivers tangible results for Caymanians and goes beyond processing application. The new BSP board appointments will concentrate its expertise on providing a more strategic direction, which includes reviewing and strengthening employer staffing plans and developing a modern employer accreditation framework with the goal of connecting Caymanians with quality employment opportunities. Honorable Michael Miles, MP, states this evaluation of the BSP board is about results. We are putting the board's energy where it has to be the greatest impact, ensuring that employers are genuine partners in developing and promoting Caymanian talent, and that every Caymanian who wants to work has a real pathway to meaningful growth and employment. What changes is the level of strategic attention directed toward Caymanian employment outcomes. With the board freed from routine permit processing, its focus shifts to diagnosing and addressing the structural factors that contribute to Caymanian underemployment and employment, and to designing an accreditation and staffing plan system that produces real measurable progress. Workforce Opportunities and Residence Cayman, WORC, assures employers and business stakeholders that work permit services will continue uninterrupted. Additional staff resources have been onboarded and assigned specifically to business plan, staffing plan applications, ensuring that employers do not experience delays during the board's transition. The ministry extends its sincere gratitude to the BSP board members as their tenure concludes, recognizing their dedicated service and significant contributions. Their work in administrating the business staffing plan framework over the past years has been invaluable. The new BSP board appointments will be announced in the coming weeks. Now, my sources on the ground says that the thank you letter was just received this afternoon, even by the chair. So the chair of the board did not even know until they got the thank you letter. That's fresh off the press. There you go.
So they replaced the entire business staffing board.
The entire business staffing plan board has and will be replaced, and that is a press release.
Hallelujah, they weeded out a lot of rough people that shouldn't have been there to begin with, and I'm grateful Thank you, Father God, for seeing the ugliness and fixing it. One other thing I wanted to stress that I feel is absolutely necessary going forward as well, to ensure there's a level playing field and everybody is given a fair opportunity. Since the government has introduced term limits for government contract workers, they should go through an immigration application process as well and be seen at the board. They should not have to get automatically hired into the government. They need to go through that process. That way the board gives the opportunity for Caymanians registered in the system at the WORC on the employment side of things, the opportunity to say, well, hey, we got 2 Caymanians can do this job for the government. Didn't you all check with us before you submit this permit for this person? And I think that's very fair. And that's the other thing I would like to see out here, that gives our people an opportunity to get jobs inside of their own government without, not having a level playing field out there at the rate it's going now. When you're going to put term limits on government contract workers, you give them the application, submit it to the board, the immigration board, and have it approved or have it refused or have it deferred. That's how I look at that.
Leave me there. We're running out of time. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you.
All right, take care. We lost Siobhan there. Thank you. Did we? Yep, we did. But let me get to some of the comments here. Denver is saying the system should be flagged by all overstayed and all in immigration, and CBC should be able to see it. Miss Brenda is saying, how about doing the physical checks like they used to back in the day? And Denver also saying, you need to big up MP Michael Miles, more join the forces. And Don is saying, they were the good old days back. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Andrew is saying immigration with the white Ford van. Anytime immigration work permit saw it, they ran. I remember the blue one with the chicken wire in the window back in the day. That's how far back I go, Andrew. And then they upgraded to the white van, but you're quite right. Dean Gillette says, we wanted capitalism. We got capitalism. The joke is on us. And Denver is also saying, as we wrap up this evening's edition of Sabrina Speaks, Mr. Michael Miles is the only MP in 30 plus years trying to help Cayman and Caymanians. The amount of people complaining about him and criticizing him should be ashamed of themselves. And Connie has a big laugh. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. But that brings us to the end of today's episode of Sabrina Speaks. And let me tell you something. At the end of the day, no matter where it lies, I want us to just really look at this for what it is, because this whole discussion tonight, as we cleared, was just trying to actually point out some of the issues from an administrative, processing perspective. It wasn't about one man. And Miss Brenda carried that straight across the board, that this is not just about him, not one nationality. It should be a broad brush straight across the board. And, at the end of the day, it wasn't about the ganja. It wasn't about blame. It was about understanding the system that governs all of us. Caymanians, residents, workers, and visitors alike. Yes. And when the system works, people are protected. When the system fails, people fall through the cracks, and we're seeing that happening more and more every day. And when people fall through the cracks, the community feels the impacts. We're seeing it. We've heard commenters saying, look at all the persons who are sleeping in their cars on the beach. And even if that is not an offense, it is not really humane. It is not humane. It means something is going on. Are you deemed destitute then, if that's the case? We deserve, in all honesty, a system where agencies communicate. And I'm hoping that if and when this piece of legislation that has bolstered and has made it easier for information sharing does come into effect, that we will see these systems and these processes improve so that we could stop the degradation of what's happening in our society, hold employers and the operational arm accountable for upholding the very same laws that we're asking for to be upheld. And where enforcement we can see is consistent. I'm hearing it. We need to see it where people aren't trapped in limbo, where the law is clear, fair, and applied with compassion, common sense, and straight across the board. Because at the end of the day, my friend, Cayman is only as strong as the systems that support it and the people who understands it. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your comments, for sharing, for joining, for calling. And I love it when you participate because that proves exactly the strength of our community. Until tomorrow, thank you for joining me. Stay informed is what I ask of each of every one of you. Please, please, please stay engaged, stay empowered, and remember, when we understand this system, we can strengthen the system. Love you lots. Good night. God bless.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.